back to Culinary Corner. This week for Crockpot cooking, we will be making Cowboy casserole. First, let's go over our ingredients. For this recipe, you will need 1 large onion, 1 pound of ground beef, 3 large potatoes, 1 clove of garlic, 2 cans of kidney beans, 1 15-ounce can of diced tomatoes, 1 15-ounce can of corn, half a teaspoon of dried oregano, 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, and 1.5 cups of cheddar cheese. We will also be making a roux for this recipe. For that, you will need 1 tablespoon of flour, 3 tablespoons of butter, we're using vegan butter, half a cup of chicken broth, and half a cup of milk. We're also using almond milk. Now, before we do any cooking, we need to wash our hands. The CDC recommends washing your hands for 20 seconds using warm water and soap, making sure to wash around your wrists, in between your fingers, and underneath your fingernails. So let's do that. Now that you've washed your hands, it's important to also remember to tie back any loose clothing and tie any long hair up and away from your face. So the first thing we're going to begin by doing is cutting up our white onion. White onions are really great for reducing high blood pressure and high cholesterol. And a fun fact about onions and actually garlic, they're in the same sort of food family. They're called almonds. And you can kind of tell because they both kind of have this papery exterior. So now I'm just going to begin by peeling off all of the skin on this onion, which is extremely hard to get off for some reason today, and slicing our onion. We're not going to chop it up too finely, but slices. If you ever have trouble chopping up an onion with your eyes watering, a little trick you can do is chew a piece of gum, and that will keep you from crying. Now that our onions have been all cut up, we're going to place it in a bowl and set it aside for later. Onions also have a lot of antioxidants that are great for keeping your immune system healthy and keeping you from getting sick. The next vegetable we're going to cut up is our red potatoes. Take our red potatoes and we're just gonna slice them into little circles like that. Now the recipe calls for about 3 large potatoes. However, we're using red potatoes, which are much smaller, so we used about 6 or 7, I think. Potatoes are really high in potassium and vitamin C, and something we've talked about a lot on this channel before is how when you eat your vitamins and minerals from natural foods as opposed to supplements or daily vitamins, you actually can never have too much of it. You can never overdose on the amount of vitamin C you take from an orange or from a potato. So that's actually a really cool fact. So that should encourage you to eat more natural foods as opposed to any supplements. Now the last vegetable we have to cut up for this recipe is our garlic. For this recipe, we're only using 1 clove of garlic. If you really like garlic, you could add extra. And we're just going to chop it up in a really fine mince. Garlic, like we said before, is an almond, so it's very similar to onions, and it also has, can help you lower your blood pressure. Garlic is also sometimes considered a superfood, meaning it has so many nutrients in it that it can be considered extremely healthy for your body. So eat more garlic. I personally really love garlic. Okay. And there you go. Now we've moved over to the stove for a little bit because the next step is to brown our ground beef. So when you're shopping for ground beef, it's really important that you're buying leaner meat. You can tell because it'll have less white fat chunks in it. And we're using 90% lean, which is pretty lean. Another healthy alternative you can also do is using ground turkey, which really I can't tell much of a difference. So first I took a pan and I heated up our stove here. It's at about a little higher than medium. And we're going to carefully open up our ground beef Okay. And place into our pan here. And then taking a spatula, we're gonna kind of ground it up and wait for it to completely ground up. After you've also put the ground beef in the pan, we're gonna want to throw away the package and wash our hands quickly to avoid cross-contamination. Now while our ground beef is browning, we're going to make our roux. So roux is used as a substitution we're using as a substitution for cream of chicken soup. It's a lot healthier and contains less fat. So we're gonna begin by grabbing 1 tablespoon of all-purpose flour. We're next gonna add half a cup of chicken broth. I'm gonna shake this up a little bit. We're then gonna grab half a cup of milk. We're using almond milk today. And 3 tablespoons of butter. We're using vegan butter as a healthy alternative. Pour that all in. Next, I'm gonna take a whisk and whisk it up. And all I'm trying to do is basically get any larger flour chunks dissolve, yeah. Done. We're now going to check on our ground beef, and using a spatula, just kind of move it around, try and brown it all up. This is one reason why it's important to wear an apron when you're cooking so you don't ruin your clothes. Because we're cooking with ground beef, which has some fat in it, it could splatter grease on us, and it's important to remember we're wearing an apron to protect our clothes. It looks like our ground beef is about done cooking. We can tell it's done because there's no pink or red chunks in it. What we can do is take a meat thermometer and ensure that our ground beef is cooked to an internal temperature of 160. Next, what we're gonna do is take our ground beef over to the sink and kind of drain any grease or fat that's in the bottom of our pan. Now that everything is prepped and ready to go, we can begin putting stuff in our crock pot. If you have a crock pot liner, now's a good time to put it in. The first thing we're gonna grab is our ground beef that we just drained. Next, we're going to grab our potatoes and onions. And now we're going to add in our canned veggies. So first we're going to add in a can of corn. The original recipe didn't call for corn, however, we wanted to add in corn because it adds an extra vegetable to it. So we're actually gonna dump this out really fast to get any of that liquid out there, so we just have corn. And there's our corn. Okay. Next we're gonna add in 1 can of diced tomatoes. If I can open it. Next, we're gonna add in our 2 cans of kidney beans. Now, normally what we do is we would drain beans into a strainer and wash them off with water to get any of that liquid off of them. However, because we're using low sodium, we're gonna include the liquid in this recipe because we're not adding any salt anywhere else. to it. And now we're gonna add in the roux we made earlier. We're gonna give it a quick whisk. Kind of hardened up and thickened up. And just pour that over the top. Now we're just gonna add in our final ingredients. First, we're gonna add in our garlic that we chopped up. Perfect. And our seasonings, using half a teaspoon of oregano, and 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning. Now, if you don't have Italian seasoning, you can actually make your own by combining different ingredients like basil, oregano, parsley, rosemary, and thyme. Okay. Now that everything's added in the crock pot, we're gonna give it a quick stir. Just combine everything. Great. And put the lid on. And now we're going to cook on low for about 3 to 4 hours. When it's done cooking, you can serve with shredded cheddar cheese. Thanks so much for watching this week's episode of Crockpot Cooking, where we made Cowboy Casserole. If you like this recipe, make sure to tag us on social media at UND Wellness and let us know your thoughts. Also, make sure to check out our YouTube channel for more fun and healthy recipes. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!